speech, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the Director General of MCR HRD, Sri Shashank Goyal. Thank you, the Additional General. Thanks to also to the Additional Director General, Sri Ben Herika. Thank you, ma'am, Richaji, for inviting me. And thanks to all of you for joining us, because it's a very damp day in Hyderabad. It's a very wet day in Hyderabad. You know, a lot of people complaining in Twitter, a lot of people complaining elsewhere on how waterlogged roads are, etc., etc. But thank you for showing up. Thank you for expressing your affection towards Mr. Abhay Tripathi. Richa, I seriously wonder now, because you asked me in the last 5 minutes at least 10 questions. I wonder how many questions you used to ask Abhay every day. Must have been quite a few. And also when you said, you know, he's a batch of 86, you know, you kept saying team of 86, batch of 86. I remember, you know, that movie, 83, right, the World Cup. So this is sort of, you know, giving me a bit of a, you know, sort of a reminder that there are batches in IAS officers, they flock together, they do well. So compliments to all of you, sir. Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Narsingh Rao, to everybody else, Samshura Garu and Satish Chandraji, to Mr. Tripathi and everybody else who's part of the batch. Glad you also asked all the right questions, but I wish you had said our city and our state as opposed to saying your city and your state. Because I would like to believe that this city belongs to all of us, not any one in particular. So therefore, I think once you've made this your home, because, you know, like, you know, what is a migrant? Who is a migrant, for that matter? I mean, my father has migrated from Siddipet to Hyderabad. Mr. Tripathi has migrated probably from the northern part of India, from Uttar Pradesh, or I'm guessing Ujjain, Madhya Pradesh, Ranchi, so northern part of India. So the thing is, I mean, end of the day, if you look at the Hakiki Hyderabadis, the original Hyderabadis, the true blood, the true blue Hyderabadis who were born, raised here, versus anybody who's moved here, I think majority of them, in fact, would be from outside of this city. Somebody could be from 50 kilometers away, somebody could be from 1,000 kilometers away, but essentially it's a city full of migrants. And if you look at any developed world, any part of the developed world, be it the US, be it Europe, be it any part, I think, in fact, just this afternoon, I was browsing, you know, on my phone, on YouTube, an ad popped up, inviting people to come work in Germany. An ad in YouTube, inviting Indians to come and work in Germany. So the point is, I think immigrants, especially hardworking immigrants with skills, with a lot of, you know, fire in their belly is what make cities great, what make countries great, what makes states great. So I can't thank enough to all the immigrants who have come here, made Hyderabad and Telangana their home, and who have contributed immensely. Thank you, and I think they deserve a big round of applause before we begin. So, Richa said, why not economics? When she called me and when she invited me to this lecture, I said, economics, how am I related? She said, but that's what the theme is, so you have to figure out, come talk to us about economics, tell us all about what your state has been doing. So, I thought to myself, you know, good economics is good politics, and being a good politician, I thought I'll take this as an opportunity to present to you this case of Telangana, which I call the most successful startup state of independent India. Because since 1950s, since independence, in fact, after 1947, there have been a number of states that have been formed. After the first State Reorganization Commission was constituted back in early 50s, and after the first set of states were formed on linguistic basis in 1950s, since then till now, till 2014, number of new states have been created. Most recently, if you have to look at this millennium, starting with Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh in 2001, and in 2014, Andhra and Telangana. So in this millennium itself, we've had 5. In the last one, we've had the remaining states. Altogether in India right now, we have 28 states. Now, what sets Telangana different? What are the challenges that Telangana has had to face as a young state? I think I'd dwell on that a bit. You know, what happens is, the context of the formation of each state is very different from the other. So if you look at Uttarakhand or Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh, I know that there was a protracted struggle in Jharkhand led by Sri Shibu Sorenji and his party, the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha. But Chhattisgarh and Uttarakhand, in fact, were formed more for administrative convenience, more for, I think, more to give company to Jharkhand in a way, if I have to say that, in 2001. But in the case of Telangana, this state was formed after a very, very hard fought, protracted struggle which lasted for decades. Yes, there were highs, there were lows, there were a number of times when it was deemed a lost cause, but eventually in 2001, when our current Chief Minister, Honorable Shri KCR, formed his political outfit called as the Telangana Rashtra Samiti, he had given a clarion call. He said this would be the last opportunity for the formation of the state, and he would go around sensitizing. He took that Ambedkar philosophy, fight, unite, and strive. He took it very, very seriously. As an Ambedkarite, he actually strived very hard for about 14 years. He did everything in his capacity to sensitize people, to agitate when there was a need, to actually make it a very important cause for the entire political spectrum in India. Eventually in 2014, I mean, I don't want to go into the nitty-gritties of what happened between 2001 to 2014 because it's all water under the bridge. There's a number of things that I can talk about, but I would rather not go there. I'll talk about what happened after formation of Telangana. In 2014, the people of Telangana, by way of their struggle, by way of their democratic spirit, have conferred a compulsion on the political system in India. It was not that Congress was very keenly wanting to deliver in Telangana. It was not that BJP was wholeheartedly supporting Telangana. It was that both UPA and NDA were compelled and were left with no choice, literally, given the political considerations, to concede and to deliver the state of Telangana. But, like Richa said, when the state of Telangana was eventually formed on the 2nd of June 2014, there were lots of doubts. There were lots of rumors. There were lots of hearsays. There were lots of apprehensions. A lot of people wondering what would happen next. And adding to this, adding fuel to the fire, I think I can't blame media, but I have to say this. I see some friends from media. Please don't get me wrong when I say this and don't misquote me and kind of chastise me tomorrow, but I'll have to say this. After the advent of 24/7 electronic media especially, there wasn't a single day in my memory from 2009 to 14 when the issue of Telangana was not debated or not actually was beaten to death. Every aspect, every single aspect with respect to formation of Telangana, would it be a viable state? Would the leadership here have it in them to actually make it a successful state? Would this state actually survive? What would happen to the migrant population? What would happen to Andhras? What would happen to Rayalaseemas? What would happen to the Kannadigas, the Maharashtrians, everybody who's settled here, who's made Hyderabad their home? What would happen to the Hyderabadi cosmopolitan fabric? All these questions were asked. There was even rumors that this would become a hot den for Naxalites. There were even rumors that the feudals would return and Telangana would once again go back to 1950s and 1940s, and it would literally become one of the most backward states in India. These were all the things that were floated, all the theories, all the nonsense that was said about Telangana. Today I stand here proudly, representing the state of Telangana, being a responsible minister in the government, and being a responsible citizen of this state. I want to list out to you all the achievements that this state has accomplished. Like I said, we focused on one basic thing. Good economics is good politics. As long as you create wealth, as long as you make sure that the poorest of the poor in the society are taken care of, as long as you ensure that the wealth that gets distributed equitably, without depriving anybody, without any depravity, I think you would have done your job. Our Honorable Chief Minister, Shri KCR, he's a man who's learned it the hard way in life, that suppression of excellence is something that is done as a matter of routine. He's had to fight his way up all along his life. He's never had anything which kind of helped him politically, meaning, especially in the politics, because you said politicians have thick skin, you also said bureaucrats have thick skin, so I have to kind of refer you, to that comment of yours. Yes, you have to develop a thick skin to survive in this. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, there is a lot of mediocrity that you have to put up with. Unfortunately, whether I like it or not, there are a lot of legacy processes, legacy issues in place which I can't simply negate or overlook or eclipse and say that, I can dispense away with that. You inherit them. These are challenges that you inherit. But end of the day, I think what matters is how well you work. In the case of Telangana, coming back to the challenges of being a young state. In the case of Telangana, when it was formed, the expectation of the people of Telangana was sky high. You know, what happens is, a Chhattisgarh or a Uttarakhand where the people weren't fighting or were wanting a state versus a state of Telangana where people were actually giving up their lives. We had young students immolating themselves, you know, setting themselves up in fire, you know, trying to make a point. We've had a gentleman called Yadi Reddy who traveled all the way to Delhi to commit suicide in front of Parliament. So this was an emotional battle. This was not a simple statehood battle. This was a battle where each and every person, you know, who was fighting for the cause, you know, took it to his heart, her heart, and actually really staked everything to make it happen. So what happens essentially when that is the mood prevalent? The expectations are high. So when we started as a young state, our Chief Minister said, the tagline of the movement for the state was justice in water resources, justice in fund allocation, and justice in employment. Neelu, Nidhulu, Niyamakalu, in Telugu if I have to put it. So this was the fundamental thing that we focused on. Back in 2014, when we started our journey, and most bureaucrats who are seated here, most economists who are seated here, or the journalists seated here would tell you, that for any government to start making plans, for any government to start working on something or working towards an outcome or a goal, you would need planning, of course, but planning can only happen in the presence or with the backing of good statistics. Mr. Joshi is here, he worked as our Chief Secretary. He would know, he would tell you. Mr. Tiwari is also here. Mr. Mishra is here, Ajay Mishra ji is also here. All of them worked with our Chief Minister very closely and they would tell you. When the Honorable Chief Minister initially started laying out plans and he started saying planning is important, statistics is important, data is important, so get me accurate information, accurate data. And when we were trying to understand where do I get this data, unfortunately there wasn't much available. You will be surprised when I say this, and I don't want to demean or insult anybody or, you know, insult or, you know, even cast aspersions on how the governments in the past were run, but the fact is, there wasn't enough data to make empirical, you know, decisions, make sure that we work towards a specific outcome. But I'll give you examples. So I was the Minister for Rural Water Supply in 2014. I was Minister for Panchayati Raj and Rural Water Supply. So Honorable Chief Minister decided that we will become the first state in India because he had done this in his constituency, Siddipet, back in late 90s. He had provided a potable drinking water connection to each and every home in his constituency. Almost, I think, about 50,000-60,000 households. And this was late 90s. So he said, if I could do that as a legislator in Siddipet, why can't I do the same thing as a Chief Minister across the state of Telangana? So he wanted me to get the data on the pipes laid in the rural, you know, setting in the villages, number of overhead service reservoirs built, when were they built, which year were they built, the number of pipeline laid, what shape are they in, when were they laid, is there like a map, is there an inventory, etc., etc. So I sat with my team, my engineering department, my engineering chief, and the entire rural water supply department. You would not believe it if I said this. Honestly, they said, sir, the data goes only as back as 1980s. What happened prior to that, we really don't know because there's no bookkeeping, there's no information, so I can't really give you that information. I'm just giving you this one example of one department where I worked. Even in Hyderabad, and you'd be probably amused and I'd be trolled if I said this, but I'll say it. I've become thick-skinned, like I said. You know, when we started looking at all the data of the Hyderabad Metro Water Supply and Sewerage Board, when were the pipes laid, what should be replaced and what should be strengthened, what should be laid afresh, etc. Unfortunately, again, the data only goes so far. We don't have adequate data. Leave all that aside. Some things are even more interesting. See, back in 1980s, when Sri N.T. Ramarao was the Chief Minister, the then government had launched a program called as Housing for the Weaker Sections. And since then, every successive government following N.T. Ramaraoji's footsteps had also continued the program, had built houses. So we just, for our own understanding in 2014, we looked at the number of houses that were built in the state of Telangana alone between N.T. Ramaraoji's time and KCRG's time. There were a number of chief ministers, number of governments between 83 and 2014, almost 31 years. You will not believe this. According to the data available with the government back then in 2014, more than 65 lakh houses were built. The total population of the state itself is 3 crores. And 65 lakh houses have already been built. So our chief minister asked, then why would there be any new demand? Why are you saying there would be any more new demand at all? If this was all true and if this was all accurate and if the books were kept properly, how is this even right? So just to give you examples. So all of this was the situation when we started our journey in 2014. On top of this, each and every time there is a bifurcation. See, even in a household, a joint family, when there is a split, when there are 2 brothers split, who gets what, who gets to keep what, who gets to have the silverware, who gets to have, the debt, etc., that's always a battle, right? So power, electricity was a huge challenge. I think Mishra ji worked as, the special chief secretary for power as well, so he would know. Who gets which project? Because, Telangana was predominantly consuming more power because we had 30 lakh plus tube wells, bore wells. So we had electricity dependent agriculture here. So we needed more power. Likewise, who gets the rightful share in water? In Godavari, Krishna. Because, like I said, when the 2 states split, prior to that we had Bachawat Tribunal. We've had other tribunals giving out allocations in river waters. But who gets to keep what in river water? Who gets to keep what in electricity? Who gets to keep what in the joint institutions, including possibly the one we are sitting in? So who gets to keep what and who gets to take what? I think that was one big challenge that we had to answer right at the onset. And on top of this, there were a number of promises made by the union government. In the Reorganization Act of the state, there were a number of promises made. There were promises to kickstart and jumpstart rapid industrialization, so therefore promised special incentives to industries and industrial corridors being set up in both states, Andhra and Telangana. There were promises of a steel factory being set up at Bayaram because there was enough iron ore, quality iron ore through Steel Authority of India. There was also a promise to set up a locomotive coach factory in Kajipet. There was a promise to make one of our projects, irrigation projects, a national project. There were several other promises that were also made as part of the State Reorganization Act. So the lack of data, the lack of clarity, the fight that goes on with respect to who gets what in terms of water, in terms of power, in terms of other resources, and more importantly, a very inimical, I'm not even saying a non-cooperative, uncooperative union government, but a very inimical, extremely negative union government, which does not believe in the spirit of federalism. They talk about Team India, cooperative federalism, but it's all lip service. They don't really believe in any of that. They'd want the hegemony of union government to continue. They'd want states to be at their mercy. They'd want to basically dominate you in every which way. That's the attitude. So this is the context of when we started our journey. So what did we do so far in 9 years? What did we accomplish? Since this is economics and since this is Abhay Tripathi Memorial Lecture, and Mr. Tripathi, I have learned, was a man of numbers and who worked on taxation, was brought in a number of reforms in the way the tax department used to work. So let me share with you a few numbers. Back in 2014, when we started our journey, our state's per capita was 1,12,000 rupees. But as of March 31st this year, in 2023, our state has the highest per capita in the country. It's 3,17,000. So starting from 112 to 317. The gross state domestic product of the state of Telangana back in 2014 was 5,05,000 crore. Now, as of March 31st this year, it is 13.27 lakh crore. Highest growth for any state in India. Likewise, I can give you a number of other sectors, but what's more important? How did you achieve this? How did this happen? Why are other states not doing it, etc., etc., are the typical questions that we keep running into. We stuck to the fundamentals. We focused on getting our basics right. We started our journey as a power deficit state. We had only 8,700 megawatts of installed capacity in the state of Telangana. Today, I'm proud to share with you, we have more than 18,000 megawatts of installed capacity, and it is going to grow up to almost 26,000 megawatts come next year. So we have started our journey as a power deficit state, but today we are a proud power surplus state, and eventually will be supplying power to other deficit states in days to come, years to come. Not only power, water. There is no other state in India which has done the kind of work that Telangana has done in water. Now, water, as we all know, is the elixir of life. It empowers everybody, irrespective of who you are. Today, why do we not find any habitation on Mars? Lack of water. Had there been water, I'm sure there would be real estate guys selling plots on Mars and Moon as well. I'm serious. I'm sure there are some people who are already doing that, because Telugus are now dominating Texas as well. I just came off a meeting from a guy from Texas. He was telling me that in Dallas we have 900 Indian restaurants, and Telugus are literally ruling the roost, and we are doing real estate all over Texas as well. Water is the elixir of life. It really is what survives humanity. It really is what helps a city grow, a state grow, and a nation grow. So we have taken it very seriously to ensure that every trickle, every drop of water that is rightfully allocated to Telangana gets utilized properly and judiciously. So we have not only ensured that the 46,000 lakes and tanks in Telangana are given the much needed fillip through Mission Kakatiya. We have strengthened these lakes, tanks. We have done it in a mission mode and ensured that every drop of water that trickles in benefits not only that village, but the entire groundwater table around in the surrounding habitations as well. We also have ensured that not just these small resources, but also the large resources that we need, because River Godavari and Krishna run at a much lower, contour compared to the entire state of Telangana. Hyderabad as a city is at 535 meters above sea level. The highest mount in Telangana is at 650 meters, whereas Godavari runs at about 80-90 meters above sea level. So the only way we can actually, use this water and bring this water to our barren fields is by way of lifting them through multiple stages. That's exactly what we have done. People talk about China. People talk about Three Gorges and how well the Chinese work, how quickly they move, how quickly they get things done, etc., etc. But it's unfortunate that not many of us know. And I would appreciate it if you actually Google after you go home, or even now if you want. You can Google and you can just type in the world's largest lift irrigation project. It is in Telangana. The project is called Kaleshwaram, where we lift water from 80 meters above sea level all the way up to 618 meters. Now this project alone provides water for irrigation, water for farmers to about 45 lakh acres. It provides for drinking water needs of Hyderabad. It also has 15% earmarked for industrial consumption. And this is literally a lifeline for the entire northern part of Telangana. Likewise, we have another project ongoing called as Palamuru Rangareddy lift irrigation. Now this is another lifeline for the entire south of Telangana, southern Telangana, which reeled under tremendous drought, which reeled under tremendous distress, and which was actually a sort of a synonym for migration of workers, Palamuru especially, Mahbubnagar especially. But today with Palamuru Rangareddy lift irrigation, which almost has reached now the final lap, and we are looking to ensure that this project gets completed in the next few months, probably by October. Once that is done, you would see water flowing to about 12.5 lakh acres of land for one crop cycle if you take it. And if you take two crop cycles, it would be 25 lakh acres. Just to give you numbers again, since this is economics. Back in 2014, our total agriculture produce, we have our agriculture secretary also sitting here, Mr. Raghunandan Rao. Our total agriculture produce, and especially on paddy, we used to procure about 68 lakh metric tons of paddy in 2014. But as of this year, the procurement rose to 3.5 crore metric tons. Telangana was ranked number 24 among Indian states in paddy production. This year, we are ranked number 2, second only to Punjab. Number 1, I'm sorry, we are ranked number 1, surpassing Punjab. So we have literally become the rice bowl of India. So that is the transformation that this focus on water has helped. Not only have we become the first state in India to give a potable drinking water connection to each and every home, We have secured the water needs of Hyderabad city as well. Hyderabad drinking water needs have been taken care of till the year 2052 by way of bringing water from Krishna and Godavari. Of course, the dream is to improve. The dream is to come from alternate day supply to every day and ensure that eventually we get to a stage, where like the first world where you get 24/7 water as well. That's the dream. So water has been a very, very important subject, and we've done some amazing things, and we've inspired the nation. Today, after Telangana has completed Mission Bhagirath, Government of India has woken up after several years and has started a new project called as Har Ghar Jal, Jal Jeevan Mission, which is good because, we need to learn from each other. And now they've also embarked on this mission. Gujarat, I'm told, is also there. Goa, I'm told, also has completed 100%. Very proud. As an Indian, as a fellow Indian, as a citizen, I think nothing makes me more proud. Because I remember there was a time when I was a student, there was a saying. People used to say, what Bengal does today, India does tomorrow. Today I can stand here proudly and say what Telangana does today, India does tomorrow. And that is what has been the hallmark of this government. Not only in water. We have done exceptionally well in making sure that even fiscal prudence has been taken into account. A lot of people accuse us of a lot of things. But I can tell you with a lot of confidence, the way we have leveraged the economy, the way the GSDP kept growing, the way the per capita kept growing, has given us scope to raise debt. Has given us scope to raise debt and invest in infrastructure. A lot of people, make a hue and cry, especially the opposition in my state. Every day they keep making a point, or trying to keep making a point, that you've made the state a debt-ridden state. Let me tell you a quick example. There was a time, I am 47, which I call me young, but I'm not young at all. In fact, I'm going through a midlife crisis as we speak. There was a time in my prior generation, or in my father's generation, so if I have to put it more succinctly, where the thinking used to be, even if you're a bureaucrat, the thinking used to be, by the time I retire from my service, I should be able to have a house in Prashasan Nagar or wherever you can afford, and maybe build a house. And by the time I retire, I move from a government bungalow, government quarter, I go to, go and retire into a house of my own. That was the thinking. But take a step back and think for a minute. That was the thinking of the prior generation, where people used to be hesitant even to raise a debt. But today, a young guy or a young girl gets a new job in the IT sector here in Hyderabad or Bangalore. What is the first thing they do? They actually pay a fat check. They take a fat paycheck, go to the bank, raise a loan, buy a home, buy a car, in the very first month or second month. So what changed? What changed is this thinking of the typical Indian thinking that there was, say, a few decades ago, that we have to save pie by pie, पैसा पैसा जोड़ के, ultimately एक घर खरीदना है. तेलुगु में एक कहावत है, क्योंकि ज़्यादातर लोग यहाँ तेलुगु समझते हैं इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ. इल्लू कट्टी चूड़ू पेल्ली चेसी चूड़ू. मतलब ये हुआ कि घर बना के देखो, शादी करके देखो. दोनों भी बहुत जिंदगी में बहुत मतलब टफ चैलेंजेस है. ये कहावत थी, इसीलिए कहावत वहाँ से आई. सवाल ये था कि किसी आदमी को अगर अपना मकान बनाना था, एक घर बनाना था, क्यों उसको मतलब 50 साल पैसा एक एक पैसा जोड़ के बनाना होता था? क्योंकि हमारी माइंडसेट, हमारी कल्चर ऐसी थी, कंडीशनिंग ऐसी थी कि भाई कुछ भी करो बट कर्ज मत उठाओ, कुछ भी करो, जिंदगी में किसी के आभारी नहीं रहना है, कुछ भी करो, बचपन से सिखाया जाता है. बट द फैक्ट इज, इफ यू लुक एट मोस्ट डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज इन द वर्ल्ड, who do we think are the most developed countries in the world? The United States, Germany, Japan. The top three economies are US, China and Japan. Just look at US. Their debt GDP ratio is 116%. The debt GDP ratio of Japan is more than 200%. The debt GDP ratio of India as a country is 59%. The debt GDP ratio of Telangana is 25%. My point is, if you look at 28 states in India and rank them on a debt GSDP ranking, we are ranked in the top, bottom 5. Ranked in the bottom 5. If you ask me, we haven't leveraged our economy enough. What matters is you raise a debt, but where do you invest it? If you raise a debt and invest into ramping up your power infrastructure, moving from a power deficit state to a power sufficient or power surplus state, would that be a wrong investment? Would that not attract more industry? Would that not attract more and more investment? Would that not create more wealth? If you actually invest, if you raise a debt and invest in drinking water needs of the state, are you not cutting down on the out-of-pocket expenditure for health? Are you not cutting down on all the typical, news that you would, see in a winter season or a rainy season, at the onset of a monsoon? In Telugu, every newspaper used to write, I remember as a kid, Mansam Pattina Manyam, Agency lo Anturogalu, matlab infectious diseases, waterborne diseases, which were rampant in the agency areas and tribes and even the habitations, in rural habitations. Just with one project called Mission Bhagirath, where we invested 40,000 plus crores, today we've been able to take care of